some duplication of services amongst departments, such as 311 and such as ombudsman. For instance, we have the best water in the United States, but I see a lot of, when I go to departments, I see water receptacles in the corner. And it may be illegal for a municipality to compete with the private sector, but we need to look at ways that we could perhaps bottle and sell our water, whether it is some kind of partnership with Fago or something along those lines. But it could be a money-making enterprise for our city.
Therefore, I think Detroiters need to hear the truth, that we may only be able to afford the services of police, fire, EMS, and pick up the garbage. And every other service other than those four that the city provides maybe have to be on the table for elimination, consolidation, or merger.
Also, Detroit is one of the last major cities to have e-filing. When we file our federal and state income tax returns, we can file electronically, and the state or federal government receive their funds immediately, and the person they receive an income refund, they receive it immediately. Detroit can generate immediate funds if they have e-filing. Also, we ought to consider leasing or selling our recreation centers to community or faith-based organizations. On the campaign trail, I've discovered there are many people who have done their research and found funding to take over these recreation centers to keep our children off the streets. Also, we need to look at our health care spending. Detroit spends around $200 to $300 million a year on health care spending, and we ought to go to our major health care providers in the city of Detroit and the metropolitan area and tell them this is how much money we have to spend and this is what we need to spend per year. Also, we might not be a bad idea to look at collaborating and joining up with Wayne County or the Detroit Public School System to see if we can merge our employees together to bring down some of the premiums on our insurance claims and insurance premiums. We also need to look at our risk management department. We spend a lot of money on lawsuits. Each year we spend $90 to $100 million a year on our lawsuits, mainly in DPD and DDOT, sometimes DPW, and look at those departments, try to bring down some of the costs for our lawsuits. And then lastly, we ought to look at making it easier for our citizens and businesses to buy property, and then also look at the lighting department as we look at the water department as a generating portion of our city budget to bring income into our city.
For example, Governor Jennifer Granholm, in her State of the State address in January of this year, indicated that she wanted the state to go down to a total of 5 departments. I think that that's an example that the city of Detroit could follow. I think that there are a number of departments that could perhaps be consolidated. For example, we have a Human Services Department and a Health and Wellness Promotion Department. They could be merged to a Department of Health and Human Services. Perhaps our Senior Citizens Department could be merged with that new department as well, and that takes you down to one department where you maybe had 3, well, rather where you actually had 3 before. That's the idea of securitizing certain revenue streams.
Well, one of the things that I would like to explore are the leasing the naming rights of some of our public facilities. That literally just means that you have a company that's willing to lend their name to our public facilities in exchange for which potentially could be millions of dollars. One other thing that I would look at is putting a cap on overtime.
Another way that I think that we can reduce spending and generate revenue is to look at our repair-to-own ordinance and find a way to better utilize the repair-to-own ordinance, which allows a person to get a city-owned property for $1 if they agree to repair it and live in it. That's the repair-to-own ordinance. We use it for homes. We can also use it for commercial buildings. It does several things. It gets city-owned properties that are, we own somewhere between 30,000 and 80,000, depending on who you talk to, which right now are a drain on the city budget because we have to cut the grass, we have to board up the windows, we dispatch police. Many of them have water running in the structure, so we're paying a water bill because nobody's actually occupying that property. If we get it into the hands of people who will now repair it and put it back on the tax rolls, not only are we generating money, we're helping to keep property values and our neighborhoods from further deteriorating because of vacant and abandoned buildings.
One of the main things that the city must look at is health care. Health care is a big problem. We're spending $200 to $300 million a year on health care for the city employees as well as city retirees. And I think that if you look at Obama's plan, which is health care for all, if we had health care for all, that would be something that we would not have to spend. The other thing is to talk about layoffs for city employees and over 1,000 layoffs. If we lay off over 1,000 employees, that's something that's going to affect the property taxes, because if a person doesn't have money because they're laid off, then how will they pay their property taxes? So we have to look at how we are spending money, change the way the city is spending money, and look at the revenue that the city is bringing in.
Well, I think that, one, we need to look at the amount of contracts that we are approving for Detroit City Council. We need to reduce the number of outside contracts. We also need to focus on city employees bidding on some of the contracts, since they're very familiar with the work that is being done by the city. We also need to look at consolidating some of the departments that exist, such as 311, maybe with the mayor's office, not with the ombudsman, but with the mayor's office, as well as some of the top-heavy positions, whether they are managers or appointees. But more importantly, we need to focus on the generation of new revenue in the city of Detroit. And towards that end, one of the things that I want to look at is enhancing one of the jewels that we have that is underutilized, and that is Belle Isle. I think that Belle Isle can be the flagship for the city of Detroit, not in terms of a fee on Belle Isle, but in terms of activities on Belle Isle that would draw people from not only around the state, but around the country. We also look at incentives that will bring people back to the city of Detroit. One of those incentives could be a personal income tax waiver for companies that relocate to the city of Detroit and have employees who choose to buy their homes in the city of Detroit. And that waiver could be for 1 or 2 years. That's taking away revenue, at the same time adding revenue onto the tax roll, water, payment of water bills, as well as the tax fee and the trash fee. So those are some of the things, and I think we need to look at the entertainment field as one incentive that will bring revenue to the city of Detroit, as well as green jobs, training for green jobs and providing green jobs.
First of all, I would like the city to spend a great deal of effort to recoup the $300 million owed to the city from fees and penalties and resources that have not been collected over the last few years. I don't believe that should be written off. I think it should be collected. And there used to be a vehicle in the law department where lawyers for the city used to send out the dunning notices, and people responded more readily to notices from lawyers. I think that should be reignited. I also believe we should eliminate deputy directors. We should eliminate all salaries over $100,000. That will save the city $3 million annually. $100,000 is a good salary, and the mayor right now is working for $1. $100,000 is enough. I believe that there should be no city-sponsored cell phones. That saves $1 million. $3 million is saved by reducing everybody to an amount not to exceed $100,000. I believe that the city should immediately merge departments that seem to have services that are replicated. 311 is a department that I've advocated. I've advocated that 311 be defunded because the Ombudsman's office provides similar services, and also the 311 operators are not in a position to ensure that the departments turn the lights back on or have the garbage picked up, the kind of services citizens often request.